This is in no way my attempt to justify my comic book obsession. And this story, I really, really like. Artwork, the storytelling. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Pull List. My name is Travis. Let's talk about The Curse of the Fantastic Four. The most recent Fantastic Four film, which is a reboot of the property owned by Fox, had two predecessors, Fantastic Four 1 and 2. There were multiple problems with the first two Fantastic Four films, hence the reboot to keep the property so the rights wouldn't immediately go back to Marvel Studios, because Fox wanted to hold on to it as tight as they can. In 2005, the Fantastic Four came out, and there was a lot wrong with it. Reed was uncomfortable instead of being confident. Sue Storm was played by Jessica Alba, which to the studio's benefit, I'm sure they thought that that would bring in a lot of mainstream people in to see the movie that wouldn't normally go to see a comic book movie. And it might have worked, but you're telling me that they couldn't pick a blonde girl who's really good at acting, who can play the part? Because Jessica Alba didn't do a great job. The best casting, in my opinion, was Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, but you couldn't connect with any of the characters. That was another big problem, is just there are these people and then, oh my gosh, they get powers and then they have to fight, but you didn't connect with any of them, you didn't really root for any of them, except for Johnny, because he was funny. The movie wasn't horrible, but it was not great. Fantastic Four 2 had the opportunity to right all of the wrongs from the first movie. They could have Silver Surfer, they could have Galactus, they could have a big epic showdown, but they didn't. They had Silver Surfer, but Galactus was like this cloud thing. They never put Galactus on film. Big mistake. When this Fantastic Four reboot was announced and the casting was released, a whole bunch of people were complaining about Michael B. Jordan playing Johnny Storm because he was black. I mean, if he's the best actor for the role, who cares about skin color, really? But then when these stupid online complaints died down about the casting, we didn't hear anything about the movie for a very long time. We knew that the movie was shooting, but we didn't hear anything from anyone. Not anything from the director, from the studio, not anything at all. And then finally one of the actors posted a picture saying, hey, we're done filming. And we were like, great, cool. And then we waited and waited. And the studio and the director said nothing. The release date was only a few months away and we didn't have a trailer, we didn't have a first look, we didn't even have a poster. Finally, we got an announcement that they needed to bring production back for a series of reshoots. Oh, okay. Now I was worried at first, but reshoots don't actually mean a bad thing. Thor 2, Days of Future Past, Age of Ultron, they all went back for reshoots to like move some stuff around to make it more streamlined, to make more sense. So a movie doing reshoots isn't inherently bad, but since we hadn't seen anything, it was a bit worrying. Since we didn't know if it looked good or looked bad, it had to be both. It had to be good and bad. It was the Schrodinger's cat of comic book movies. But we heard some talk about it being grittily realistic and like Fantastic Four meets Batman. Okay, let's talk about gritty realism in comic book movies. With Batman, with the X-Men, it works. With Spider-Man, with the Fantastic Four, no. No, it just doesn't. Coming out of Marvel Studios, Cap 2 was dark and gritty, sure, but Guardians of the Galaxy was practically a comedy. If you want to understand the basis behind Fantastic Four, you need to understand why Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created the Fantastic Four. They wanted to create heroes that didn't necessarily want to be heroes, and since their introduction in 1961, they've been a very tight-knit, dysfunctional, yes, but close family. Once they got their powers, society saw them as monsters, especially Ben. But since they identified as humans and they didn't actually want the powers, they just had to learn to live with them. I've been mulling it around in my head if I even wanted to do a video on Fantastic Four because it's been out for a few weeks. But I paid the admission fee to see this movie, so let's talk about it. Obligatory spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie and you've been kept from spoilers thus far. Even though the film as a whole was pretty awful, I didn't mind that it took a little over half the film for them to get their powers. No, really, I'm being honest. This origin story is actually a reimagining based off of the Ultimate Fantastic Four series from the comic books, so it's different than what we've seen on film before. And I'm not one of those pompous jerks that hates origin stories. That being said, if I never see a Peter Parker Spider-Man origin story on film ever again, it will be too soon. But the key to any origin of any character is that you have to create a universe, you have to care about the character, so I understood that they were not going to get their powers in the first half an hour of the movie. And then it all fell apart when they rescued Doom. Once he was Doom, it went from to I realized that everything was just falling apart. There really wasn't any tension or drama. Doom wasn't scary. And I'm one of those presumably very few people who looked at Doom's costume and went, I guess that kind of makes sense. I really like the young Reed and Ben scenes, and I like Miles Teller's other work, and I like the fact that the government stepped in after they got their powers, because, let's face it, they could be nuclear weapons. However, the scenes felt so disjointed that I wasn't actually sure what kind of comic book movie I was watching, because all of the scenes were very unhinged. The story ended up dragging on so long, and at the same time the script felt rushed, which was a strange combination. It was as if they needed to type a 15-page book report, but instead used 14-point font, triple spacing, a big huge title header thingy, and just threw it on the table. And they used so much footage of actors just staring at computer screens, badly fake typing. It's like, we can tell that you're not typing anything, you're just... However, there was supposed to be an action sequence with the Thing while Reed was MIA that was cut from the film. The director didn't know if he actually wanted it in the film. He did, and then he didn't, and then he did, and then he didn't. Then the studio told him to finish the scene, and he said the special effects clashed with the rest of the film, and the studio was like, you should do it, and he was like, well, I don't know if I should, and then he just killed it. It was just all over the place, and the studio cited the director as being out of control and not knowing exactly what he wanted. Remnants of the scene can actually be seen in the trailer, you know, when the Thing comes out of the plane, and then he does that big huge landing thing, and then the bullets and all that stuff. That would have been really cool. There's a link down below of what the scene was actually supposed to be. And as one commenter on the article said, the behind-the-scenes drama of this film is more entertaining than the film itself. I'm sure that action sequence would have helped at least a little bit, but there were so many things that they just missed the mark on in this movie. Again, Fox, what are you doing? What are you doing? The reported budget of this film was $200 million, and I don't think that even counts the reshoots. And on opening weekend, it made $26.2 million. That's like just over 10% of what it cost to make the movie. As of last week, the very end of September, the movie had made $130 million. Still, not even the cost that it took to make the film. And from what I understand, Fox only gets 50 to 60% of domestic theater revenue, so they would have needed to make $400 million just to break even. Ouch. Fox really needs to learn what they need to do if they're going to actually go through with Fantastic Four 2. Although I heard a rumor that Fox might want to scrub the Fantastic Four 2 and just put Deadpool 2 in that spot, which would be pretty cool, yeah? How about this? Marvel just works out a deal to get the rights to Fantastic Four back. Just a thought. Do what they did with Spider-Man, no origin. We know that these are people with powers. We understand the powers. The general public understands the powers. Just hit the ground running, go. Put them in the universe. I mean, they are Marvel's first family, so, I mean, they should go back to Marvel Studios. Come on, Fox. Just cut them loose. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Fantastic Four movie, if you think that they should go back to Marvel Studios, of course you do. What you thought of the movie going in, if you just didn't bother seeing it because other people were giving it such negative reviews. I have not heard many positive things about this film at all. Like I said, I really like Miles Teller's other work, but it's just, sorry man, and the promotion of this movie was just so weird because they weren't even posting on the Fantastic Four Facebook page or Twitter with like huge gaps of time when they should have been promoting their movie, no matter how awful it ended up being. Anyway, that's it for this episode of The Pull List. My name is Travis. Thank you for fueling my comic book obsession, and you will see me tomorrow.